Skee, it's always great to see you, and excited to jump in the metaverse.
Yes, it's been great to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
No, of course. Well, would you prefer DJ Skee or Scott? What do you prefer?
Either one. I go by both. People know me from the music industry, obviously Skee, but Scott is the easier name to say and remember. So I'm fine either way.
All right, we'll mix it up a little bit. So we'll go with your given name, Scott. So yeah, you mentioned the music business. You have your DJ. For those that are not aware of who you are and what you've done over the last several years to essentially advance the metaverse, what did you do in music that essentially prepared you to be an early adopter of this? And what has that led to today, which is obviously your, I should see Chris joining as well. Excited, yeah, but love to hear more about your background.
Sure. The through line for me through everything that I've done in my career has always been trying to identify trends early. If you look at like my bio, the way that I'm, the easiest way to explain and what I'm most notable for is probably introducing the world to artists early on, whether that's Lady Gaga, Travis Scott, Kendrick Lamar, Post Malone, et cetera, as well as brands doing, the first marketing with back in the day, if you guys remember the T-Mobile Sidekick through, Beats by Dre launching that brand, getting involved in a lot of different things early. The way I got started in the industry is interesting. I grew up in Minneapolis and was always, and this is around the time of Napster when the music industry was going through probably the biggest disruption it ever faced. I was the kid on the internet that was DJing, that had built a website that was really active in that. And I ended up getting connected with the CEO of Loud and Sony Records, Steve Rifkind. And, I was selling him I was making money selling like PS2s on eBay and he needed one for his son for Christmas. Long story short, just built a relationship with him and then sent him a bunch of ideas. I asked him if I could put together a proposal of thoughts that I had for him, kind of unsolicited. I didn't really want anything. I was like, hey, here's some ideas on what you should be doing. And it was all kind of focused towards what was happening with the internet and ideas that I had for the future. And I was kind of the perfect person to write that, even though I was still in high school and not in that traditional background. I was living and breathing kind of what was happening with the internet. And I was that target audience. So he loved it so much, he offered me a job. And, ironically enough, that letter got me a job when I was 16. Ended up the next year packing a U-Haul, driving across the country and moving to work for him in LA. And through that, worked on the industry side of things, but then in the DJ side got noticed when I was producing mixtapes, started introducing artists. I saw when YouTube launched, I got on that very early. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I knew that there was like lightning in a bottle there, and it was important for me to jump on. From that, it ended up with me, Mark Cuban giving me a TV show on his network and then moving to Fuse, us, generating billions of views on this YouTube page. And throughout that, I was always on radio, launched a company called Dash Radio. And after leaving iHeart and Sirius, because we saw the mechanisms for content changing, and kind of in that journey, we realized like the big opportunity coming up was in like gaming in the metaverse space. And we made the decision about 18 months ago to focus on powering music and experiences in the metaverse. And 18 months ago, people thought I was crazy. I remember running around, we did a lot of work with the Discord. We're building now in Roblox and mentioning these brands to the biggest artists and managers and labels in the world. And they were like, oh, that sounds cool. What is it? And over the last year and especially the last like 3-4 months, obviously since Facebook's announcements, it's been, nonstop in a whirlwind. So for me, I think it was always just like identifying trends and getting in things early, even if we don't fully understand them, just like knowing that there was, something happening there and that I wanted to be a part of it and just immersing myself to head first in those communities to understand it as much as I could.
I love it. I mean, for those that are listening, being the person that is, even if you're bleeding edge, you don't know all the answers, to lead the charge. It helps with being the influencer business. Scott in the music metaverse business. I guess I'd love just to level set. I mean, I'm sure a number of other panels have talked about it, but the metaverse as it relates to music, is that related to NFTs? Is it the songs as NFTs? Is it live concerts? Give everybody kind of like the rundown from what you see is in the music business today, not even the future, but today.
Absolutely. So for today, it's interesting, right? Like there's still the biggest hurdle with anything with music is always going to be licensing, because there's several parties involved. There's, of course, the artists, but there's the record labels, the publishers, the writers, and there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen on that. So I personally am not extremely bullish on, say like NFTs for like, selling song shares and giving royalties and dividing ownership up. And when you're looking at, I think it works in some genres, like electronic, there's not as many writers. It's easier to get done. A lot of the DJs can control it. And the numbers on streaming aren't as massive as other sounds. When you get into any pop record that's on the charts, you're looking at like today, there's about 25 records on like hit songs that you're hearing on the radio, right? Like there's writing camps, like there's a lot of people involved in those processes. And it's just such a clunky system that I'm advising in general, like, well, I think in theory, that is an incredible use case of a smart contract and an NFT. And I think ultimately it will get there. I think it will take a lot of time just because there's so much friction and reporting and so many parties involved, and just knowing and how certain things in the music industry evolve. I think that that's going to take a while to mature. However, I think the opportunities as it relates to, if you talk about NFTs, comes to artists creating content themselves, things that are everything but the song, right? Whether that's artwork, whether that's access to, I guess archives and almost like fan clubs. Steve Aoki, one of my good friends, just announced, I saw just a text from him that he announced the Aokiverse, where you get access to, it's like his own universe and membership club, and to buy his NFTs early. And I think you're going to see a lot of opportunities like that on the NFT side. On the Metaverse side, I think that there's, everybody, it's something that everybody wants to get into, yet doesn't quite understand. And I think you're seeing the best examples that we've seen to date that everybody references are, Marshmello, Travis Scott, Ariana Grande, Fortnite, Lil Nas X, Roblox. Those have turned out really, really well. The challenge is that those are very expensive to develop, take a long time, and they last like 12 minutes. They're not really scalable. And it's almost like the Super Bowl halftime show. It's going to work for the biggest of the big, but not everybody else. And what I'm really interested in about is, all right, how do artists engage with their kind of communities in these spaces and interact with them? And one thing that we've been trying to do in some of these games and worlds that we're doing are creating like artist branded and themed worlds that reflect moments that are happening in real life, but that we're also bringing in their friends, that we're also populating and doing activities that can exist beyond just like a one-off performance. So I think it's thinking outside of the box with that. There's also like certain artists, like there's one up and coming artist that's incredible named Teflon Sega, who exists only in the metaverse, only as an avatar, and he's streaming live on Twitch, doing concerts live in Unreal Engine, and it's truly phenomenal when you look at that and see it. But I think that we're still so early in that there's not a ton of opportunities today for a lot of artists to jump in, and a lot of metaverse platforms aren't populated outside of like the Roblox and Fortnite. So it's really kind of starting there, and I would advise people to look at the ones that are already working also, instead of just building their own.
Yeah. Well, so let's get into an actual tactical scenario that you put together with Paris Hilton. Funny enough, kind of side story. I used to, back in 2010, 2011, I used to manage beyond my own accounts on Twitter, both Paris Hilton and Common's Twitter accounts. So that was me essentially being them, which is a very different group of people in terms of what was being said. But great fan of Paris. Tell us about the essentially what you've evolved with her, and the Paris world, all the stuff you're doing. And I think once you go through it, I'd love to also just kind of double click into how it came to be and how she can use that to monetize with herself, how fans can interact. So kind of like, let's start with what it is, and let's go into kind of what it means.
Absolutely. So what Paris World is, in essence, we launched in Roblox on New Year's Eve, and we've created an entirely themed world that is based around Paris's interests. So in it, there's, of course, she's a DJ. She's the highest paid female DJ in the world, believe it or not. So there's a club in there. We're doing different performances on weekends. We're bringing in artists. She kicked it off with the New Year's Eve set on the stage. There's a club. She's huge into animals, so you can adopt pets in the world and walk them around with you, go play with giraffes, and, bring in your own dogs. We've recreated our house in there, so you can raid her closet, buy her goods, drive her cars. We've put the Paris pink Bentley that we call the Bentley in the game. You can take helicopter tours. I mean, the whole concept of the island is, think of it like Ibiza meets, Paris Hilton in a virtual world. It's like you're going on vacation and get to hang out with her. If she was to draw a world, this is what it would look like. The backstory of it is interesting. Like, if you look at Paris throughout her career, she is you understand, like truly the OG influencer, right? She was the first that was famous for, in essence, being famous. And that, if you remember the weekly mags, they would follow and document her, and that first celebrity that remember, Paris is responsible. Kim Kardashian was Paris's assistant. But Paris has always stayed ahead of the curve. She was one of the first celebrities to get into NFTs. In 2019, she won NFT Celebrity of the Year award before anybody even knew what like NFTs was. She was just on Fallon 2 nights ago giving them out to people. So she's been a great ambassador for that community and for tech, and has always been just forward thinking. What I love about Paris is like she understands her brand better than anybody else. She knows exactly who she is and the role that she plays. And she's also she understands the value of doing things for brand versus just money. So I happened to be hanging out with her and her new husband, Carter, just over a year ago. And we were talking about projects and what we were all working on. And this is, again, I was preaching the metaverse, and they were like, all right, we've heard of it. It sounds cool, but like, what is that? And it's like, well, we should talk. Like, if you're interested, like, here's what we're building and developing. You'd be a perfect person. You actually like, we should experiment. Who knows if it's going to work or if it isn't, but it's something that you should be involved in, and broke down what it was. She was like, yeah, I've always wanted to do something in like Fortnite. I was like, well, how about Roblox? I think Roblox for you specifically, more females, it's a younger demographic, but a little more inclusive. I think for your brand, this fits better. She's like, all right, what is it? And I showed it to her. She's like, awesome. This seems really cool. So it literally came from, the relationship that I had with her, and her kind of trusting my judgment and like believing that like, all right, this is going to be something real. And also just being so forward thinking. It wasn't about like dollars. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to pay you $1 million. Let's develop this, because we didn't know how it was going to turn out. It was like, let's try this thing. And if it works, it's something that you want to be in first. And over the course of the process, we developed this world together. And the key telling sign, we did the launch on New Year's Eve of this year. We had more people than were in Times Square watching the ball drop. She already is in the top 2% of Roblox games in terms of overall, I guess, concurrent visitors, which is kind of insane for something that we didn't really promote or hype up. We wanted to test it and like launch it very organically. And we launched it again by her doing a DJ set. We recreated like a ball drop Times Square style environment. And I remember waking up and getting a text. And we also did one thing to launch was we put her in the game. So she jumped in with her avatar. We started off with a private server where I brought in the top influencers in the Roblox community, just because it's so important to connect. You don't want to just show up there and be there. So we brought her into that, as well as she went out into public servers to do that. But the next morning I woke up, and this is Paris Hilton, the queen of partying, with a text saying, oh my God, I never in a million years thought I would be spending my New Year's Eve on a computer doing a virtual party. But I had more fun in this world than I did in a real world party. All the outfits that all the kids were wearing was just incredible. It was such a fun experience. I have so many ideas. Like, this is the future of partying. I'm all in. Thank you for bringing me this. I thought you were kind of crazy at first. And I, again, would never in a million years think that I'm spending my New Year's like this, but it was funner than the real world. So that's why I was like, all right, there's something real when somebody who's, not even in that core demographic is having that much fun in it, embracing it. And it's really for her, for being a visionary for that, but also like the platforms, there is so much excitement, so much fun once you really dive in. And Roblox is probably the best example right now of those communal experiences of all the metaverse platforms right now.
Well, and again, I love what you've obviously built with them, and Carter, who's a friend and an investor. They are the ultimate power couple between her, her entertainment guru, his tech and investment guru. I'm glad that you guys all teamed up there. I'm thinking of the people that are listening that are, we have throughout the course, we'll have thousands of brand marketers jump in. They want to think about sustainability and execution. So let's just look at it from Paris's perspective. How often does she have to go into this universe to engage with the audience? Or is it just like it's there, and then when she leaves and it has a monthly like DJ set, what's that look like in terms of like the hygiene of it?
It's a great question. And I think the answer is going to change for each brand or each individual, meaning there's going to be certain times where you just want to do a moment. For Paris, we launched it with a big event, but we have plans of making this a persistent world with multiple special events. We're going to be doing a big launch around the time in the next 2 weeks, around the time of Fashion Week, around the time of Super Bowl. And we're going to be recreating things that are interesting to Paris in the real world. Our ultimate goal is we want, when fans see Paris show up at the VMAs in a crazy dress, we want them to be able to experience that with Paris in a certain way, buy her merch, buy her virtual goods, and experience these parties kind of without being there IRL. However, for certain brands, and certain artists, like when you look at, again, the best examples that we brought up with like Travis Scott, Marshmello, Lil Nas X, these aren't really persistent environments. These are experiences that last 12 minutes, right? And they replay a couple times and then they're gone. And I mean, from a licensing perspective, they can't play from that, but they would also lose the kind of the fun and that live communal element. So I think it's a combination of both. The way that we look at it, you know, in the way that we advise brands is it's almost like beyond that too. If you really want to get serious in this space, it's like setting a social media account. You can't just build it and then be like, all right, we built it. It'd be like starting a Twitter page and posting one post and be like, hey, Twitter, we're here. And then like, it's like, no, you constantly have to nurture, to engage, to react in real time. And that's what Paris does. She's reacting to the community. And the one thing that we've really learned, and I think, you know, tried to build in is joining and authentically becoming parts of this community. There's key influencers, key figures, key ways things work on each individual platform. Like Robloxians are very, you know, specific with what's authentic, with what can be done, with what can't. Like we've made mistakes and corrected those and embraced the community and brought in the right people. And, you know, everything from the developer communities to highlighting others to cross promoting it. For us, it's not just about getting everybody into Paris's world and buying that. It's getting her, you'll see us doing collaborations in other worlds. We've brought in other UGC creators to help design Paris's UGC merch and really embrace that community. So I think like, especially, you know, what might be relevant for a lot of the brands out there, it's not enough to just build it. And that's not going to become unique anymore. It kind of is right now. It's like, oh, there's a press release every time a big brand launches something like that. But as that becomes more and more common, that's going to become less and less interesting. So it's really going to be about building and growing that community. And that's really what I've been focused in trying to like hone in on. And I think what Paris has been doing such a good job on. So it's her like reacting, jumping in, you know, quite frequently with that, interacting with the community outside of Roblox. She's retweeting them on Twitter and talking to them kind of IRL as well. It's not just isolating it to it. It's like this 360 holistic campaign and then identifying moments that we want to get really active and loud in it. So hopefully that answers your question.
So I added a new word to my lexicon. It is Robloxians.
Roblox.
So
it is a real thing.
Are there Decentralandians? Is that another thing?
What? That's a good one. I'm sure there is, and there's going to be. We've got to find one for Sandbox too. There's a lot of fun stuff happening. So. All
right. So for Robloxians, again, this is kind of the perception I think of the market. Those that have kids, especially, that it's probably largely under 13. Like it's like Gen Z and 13 and below. Yeah. One, do you believe that is the case and it's going to change and age up? And two, if I'm a brand, am I basically saying I know they can't afford my car or they're not going to be able to go and buy my drinks for their parents? Are you trying to basically say, hey, immerse everybody in a story and narrative now and for like the next 10 years? So yeah, I'd love to hear about kind of like the age marriage to you know, these different platforms.
Absolutely. Great question. And the way that I look at like taking it a step back as I look at the metaverse is I'm not gambling on one winner. And I think there's going to be multiple platforms. I don't think there's going to be one be all end all. We saw that even with Web 2, right? Like there was obviously dominant players when you look at Facebook, Twitter, but Snap, but there's other alternatives. There's Snap. There's a lot of people, especially younger people, that were never on Facebook. So there's room for multiple ones to live. When you look at Roblox specifically, it absolutely is very young right now. And I think that, you know, and I think you almost have to look at each platform when you're a brand. You got to identify what your goals are, what your target audience is, and what your long-term play is. If it's just jumping in and doing one event and trying to reach as many people as possible, then you want to go to, you know, the platforms where the audience is. If you're really looking at the future and want to be a big player, you have to look at like I love Sandbox, and you know, it's not launched yet, but you have to spend real money. Like land plots are selling for millions of dollars in Sandbox. So is that an investment that you want to make in? Do you believe in the roadmap? Do you believe in the team? And like you look at the writing on the wall with other brands being in there. Do you want to go there and own that and do something? So I think, or do you want to go across multiple ones? And I think, again, it boils down to what target demographics you're going after, what your role, what kind of your plan is. and what you're, again, really identifying what your goal is. When we look at Roblox, and for the reason that I really like Roblox is, look, they know they need to age up. They have come with, several great technology advances, but they do have, like, kids that are growing up on that are their, like, that's their life. So, and that is where the community is today. Like, again, Sandbox isn't even launched. So if you're building and spending all this money in there, you're not going to get a true ROI day one, other than maybe media impressions if they pick it up, because it's not even live, right? Like, same with Decentraland. It's still, like, so new. There's not a ton of people in there. You're not going to get, in terms of, like, raw impressions. And if you're measuring it by CPMs or anything, you're going to be far off. So that's why, like, look, if it's short-term, Roblox, but there's also ways to, like, get your feet wet, like go partner with worlds or games or things that are already existing. See what kind of works. You don't necessarily need to build your own plot. Kind of follow that. I think it's important for every brand I think they should be getting in and experimenting, and you're going to learn by the reactions in the community as to what works, and evolve from that. But yeah, it really boils down to each brand and identifying kind of what those goals and what type of investment you want to make into that. Personally, my belief is I would be investing in going across multiple ones, because I think it is going to be such an important space and sector, but it just depends on what you can and want to do, and the resources are.
I remember 15 plus years ago, I was in Second Life, which it was kind of the first quote unquote metaverse, and kind of like Sims meets Fortnite, but like there's no rules, and yeah, there was entire economies built then. I think it's just ahead of its time. With the whole Linden Lab guys. I think they're back. I think someone I don't know if they brought them back, or I saw their name again. But I guess so. Right now, the Roblox scenes is one thing. I guess today, as marketers, they're on the online right now, listening in. Would you say, hey, you can go do one for Fortnite? If you have to go partner with the makers of Fortnite, I guess. How would they go about figuring out, like, how to partner with these different entities?
There's two ways. The organic way is, and the way that we did it, even with Roblox in Paris, like, we have a good relationship with the Roblox team, but we just did it. The beautiful thing about the metaverse and Web3 in general is the fact that it's decentralized. And, for me, it's important to do things that are really authentic to the community. Of course, anyone in any brand with any amount of money can of course just buy their way in and make an impact. And not that that's the wrong route, but I'm always been, and the way that I've always worked, just from, even being a DJ in the mixtape side, is always being like creating that ground level and that organic layer. So it's so important for me to build for the long term, to get the right influencers involved, to slowly grow it, right? Like with Paris World, we made an intentional, decision to not launch it and put paid media behind it and pitch every brand in the world and go in and do all these things. We wanted to, like, quietly launch it, bring in the right community members, take their feedback so we can evolve and grow and see what works and really learn and build this for the long run. We want to not be there just to be there for today and tomorrow. The great thing is about these platforms is that you can build generally with them. Of course, there's partnerships that can be done, but I'm a fan of also, looking at it organically, and then you can, like, level up from that. I really like Fortnite. I'm a huge fan of Epic, and Unreal Engine to me is has the potential to be the game-changing technology of this next time. I mean, you just see how even films are being shot and stuff. I love what they're doing in Fortnite. Creative mode is, and probably if you talk to the Fortnite guys, probably the most underutilized element of the game. Everybody focuses on Battle Royale, but that seems to be, and if I had to make a guess, that's where Epic will make their launch into the metaverse, using the foundation for that. And again, that's something that you can build on your own. That's where recently a lot of people have seen the headlines for the Cause exhibit in there. Jordan did something recently in there. All these things are happening in Fortnite creative. And while the monetization tools aren't there necessarily, which they need to open up, the potential is vast, and that's one area that I think of focusing on. And again, another one that a lot of people are not talking about, the most under the radar one right now, and one that has a tremendous audience, is Minecraft. Like, there, like, a lot of, like, people might have think that it's old and it's been around, but it's having, like, a resurgence. There's like, if you talk to a lot of, especially like mid-teenage males, there's a tremendous population that are back in Minecraft, and it seems to be like Roblox, Fortnite, even Decentraland are getting the bulk of the announcements. And I think that Minecraft is a huge opportunity that a lot of people are missing out on right now.
And so yeah, there's multiple platforms, ones that we think are may have kind of fell off the radar, but ultimately, obviously I'm biased. We have a creator company, Influential. We're thinking about what are the actual creators that are in these places. And you mentioned there's some Robloxian creators that exist. When you think of creator, are the creators the best, like in this new world? Because I was thinking of the visual effects creators, like AR and VR, is a whole different skill set beyond just being funny or being emotive. So when you think of a Robloxian or someone that's a Fortnite person, is it someone that knows how to build things? Is it someone that is has built a large audience and a large pedigree in the space, or is it you have to be both at the same time?
I think there's two different tracks, right? Like you're going to see the people that like Poke that are the like massive on platforms like Roblox, right? Like they stream, their YouTube channels go ridiculous. He has millions of followers on Roblox alone. So people are watching what games he's in, what UGC he's buying. And like, these are influencers. It reminds me almost like Instagram early on, before like influencers, and it was really a thing and brands really jumped in. You're seeing the same, like, and with the metaverse, one thing that I've always said is that it's not like, one of the tough things is it's so like far out and seems so distant, but a lot of the theories that work IRL are going to carry over. Just the platforms and the medium is going to change. So I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and you're going to see a new generation of influencers that are these avatars and that are characters and players in that world. And then similarly, you're going to see people that know how to build great content, great graphics, great worlds become popular. And, people are following, like in Roblox, that community knows, oh, who built that? Like, and you're looking in the descriptions of a lot of these games, you'll see like one thing when especially when they're building games on their own without brands, it will say like, all the different roles, almost like the credits to a film. And those are important. It's almost like, all right, who made this movie? Is it a Steven Spielberg movie? People are going to see it because it's those things. So I think they're two different tracks, but they're both wildly important. And that's the thing that a lot of people are ignoring as they jump into that space.
Got it. Great. Well, I've monopolized a lot of your time here. About 8 minutes left, and I see I got some questions coming in right now. So I'll start going through some of these. It's actually from one of our guys, Cody. He says, "First, go blue." So how insane was the experience DJing the game last fall? This is going off of the thing. Is Coach Harbaugh staying in Ann Arbor? And how does the live sporting experience get metaverse moving forward? So a sports question for the metaverse.
Exactly. So my side stuff, I've always been into sports. I grew up in Minneapolis. I do all the entertainment for the Vikings. I just announced with NASCAR for the first time ever, I'm going to be DJing during the race and during some of the things, which for the upcoming Clash at the Coliseum. Coach Harbaugh reached out to me a couple of years ago before COVID, as he, I've won several awards in the game day entertainment space, and he wanted to amp up the energy at the big house. COVID hit. They called again when it was the game, which is the biggest, regular season college football game of all time, Michigan, Ohio State, and they were underdogs and won. So that's what it's in reference for. And that was one of the coolest experiences in my life. I put out a TikTok that went viral of me like playing and cutting off the music, is 111,000 people saying that song. So there's nothing that like replaces that. And I don't think in real life is going away. That's more important than ever. However, there's always for any event like that, right? Like only a small fraction of people are ever going to be able to experience that in person, whether that's a sports game. Like even though it had 111,000 people there was 15 million people that watched that on TV. So it's still like a small percentage of that. And the same thing that you're going to see with concerts, right? Like 4,000 people in a venue, 20,000 people in a venue, 100,000 even at a big festival. There's going to be way more people that you can reach through the metaverse. So I'm always big in like, all right, how do you create, it's not just turning a camera on necessarily, especially when it comes to like music and entertainment. How do you create these like parallel experiences that can coexist? So in the future, I think we're going to see a world where, say, if there's Coachella, there will be Coachella in real life. That's everything that we see today, but there'll also be a digital version of that. That's a fully different experience. It's optimized on these digital platforms that might be motion tracking these artists. So you can jump on stage with them in your server and even, who knows, play guitar with, whoever is headlining that year and jump on on stage. I think there's a lot of cool, unique things that won't be the same, but that will be fun and different in themselves. And that opens up an entirely new monetization, revenue stream, and business. And that's what I'm really focused on building, is how we can kind of cross between those worlds. So I think you're going to see that across sports. We're still in the intricacy in the early days of this, and we're starting to dive in and experiment with teams. And one thing that we're working with some of the sports teams on that are trying to age younger is like, how do we create games and experiences that aren't like related to the actual game? How do we do something fun with that brand that can tie in and create these new type of experiences? So I think that there's so much potential, and it's still the Wild West that we're all trying to figure out.
I love it. Well, so let's I'm gonna get pessimistic for a moment. There's so much potential here, and it's all amazing. And the idea of being in this kind of world that anything can live. My assumption is that while you can look at it on a screen or a computer screen, we're still probably 2-3 years away from everyone having access to lightweight, low cost enough headgear, VR type headsets. Do you think this only happens at any sort of real scale when the access to technology is available, or is it something, well, you know what, people will just live and use it on their phone and they'll just get used to it and they'll still think it's exciting?
I think there's going to be ways in, because I mean, even today, right? Like even in Paris world, I mean, you can experience in Roblox, which, you could argue is an early metaverse, but you could stream that on YouTube or Twitch. And so that can kind of happen for that. I think the biggest thing that's holding back the metaverse is lack of, great experiences, to tell you the truth, right? Like if you buy an Oculus headset, Oculus for what, $299 or whatever the price is right now, is the best piece of consumer technology you can buy. However, a lot of the apps are still very gimmicky. It's like, all right, you can walk the plank and jump off a building and like have this crazy experience. And you're like, all right, that's cool, but you're going to do that once. I feel like there's a lack of sticky and like really well thought out experiences. Even when you look at, some of these shows, like we're talking about Fortnite, doing these great concerts with Travis Scott and Marshmello and Ariana Grande. Again, those are 12 minutes long and they happen once or twice a year. What's happening the rest of the time? So I think the bigger question is that we need and what brands are going to come in and what companies are going to identify how to create great experiences. Because I think it's always the content that leads the way. If there's something that's that compelling that everybody wants to feel a part of, they will join. And there's multiple ways that, like, even if you don't have an Oculus, people will find a way to stream it in 2D on Twitch and experience that. And I think that, that's where the real opportunity for brands is. How do we help usher this in? I think that the metaverse, the biggest thing that it's lacking is, I mean, yes, there's the technology argument, but I think the biggest thing is just great content.
Well, I agree. With the last 2.5-3 minutes left, I'm going to actually give you a plug, partly because I wanted to both mean those that are watching can actually visualize what the Paris universe can be in the Robloxian world. If they wanted tomorrow to figure out a way to partner up and do a branded integration, is it a banner above her DJ table? Is it a shirt with the name on it? Is it the drink on the, I guess, how do you think about the integrations that you guys have been exploring? And maybe it could be something where this leads to someone doing that with you guys the next few months.
Absolutely. And thank you. And yeah, for us, I think it's like, and especially with Paris, right? Like she's very protective of her brand, but it's doing things that make sense and that are cool. And I think all of those are options, right? We don't want to be just doing something that is like spraying stuff on there and doesn't feel authentic and right. But there's a lot of brands that she's worked with in the past. For instance, she has a very infamous Super Bowl commercial with, where she's eating a burger and it drips. And we've thought of like, all right, how do we recreate that in like a metaverse version of that, or like create some stunts like that? And there's just so many fun things to play off of. And especially, I think the things that work the best are things that exist both in real life and in the metaverse. And there's a lot to play with from those things. So for us, there's even like one example of brand integrations in the small scale is there's a yacht company that Paris works with that we integrated into the game and built a yacht and created the marina for them. And it was a win-win because it's natural. She was honeymooning on their yacht. So they're like, oh, we want to build something in Paris world. And we're like, awesome, that sounds fun. Like, let's do this. It's outside the box. And then other times it's like, all right, we're doing these big performances. There's big brands. We're even talking about like, all right, what does, outdoor advertising look like? Is there billboards, but done like in a cool way and that are digital? So I think that there's, really no limits to that. And for us, we're down. We're just trying to find fun, creative things to do. It's more about the story and creating moments that are iconic versus, trying to maximize and bleed every dollar of, from a CPM basis.
Love it. Well, I think Sydney will come back in a second. I guess while she's kind of doing the wind up for the next session, one last in 30 seconds or less, what is it that you would want to see by the end of 2022 Like, what would be a goal of moving the metaverse conversation forward? Is it artists that are going to, a certain number of artists coming on, a certain number of brands jumping in, more worlds popping up? Like, what do you think is going to happen that would be a win for the overall ecosystem?
Again, I think it's going back to content. I think brands need to jump in and realize it might not work. It might fail. You can't be scared of that. But because from when you're truly creating greatness, you can't be afraid to take these risks. And the good thing is you can kind of see what the reactions are. And you're never going to do anything that's like a bad look for you, as long as you like organically integrate it into the community. But I think that the key thing holding it back and what we need is great content, great moments, great experiences that can bring in people that aren't currently in there, and the super early adopters, but really creating things that are sticky. And I think it's going to be ushered in by brands that are working with creatives, that they are, and when they're able to underwrite and kind of come in and provide that value that they have, not only from like underwriting and financially, but marketing, cross promotional, and the credibility that they end. That's where we're going to really see it taking off. So hopefully brands jump in, creators can work with them, and we find ways to create really great kind of outside the box experiences that we haven't seen today.